Got it. Okay. So the implementation process is just basically things you have to put in place before using the system, or before going out there to say the system is okay for the customer or the clients to be using, right? So that's what we're just going to be looking throughout today. So our table of contents, we have the software implementation parts and the hardware implementation parts. And in the software implementation part, you have things like the required documents, which is a checklist of things you necessarily have to have before you even start saying you want to set up an instance. Now, an instance is the website or the URL link to that customer's backend. That's what I call an instance. So you need some information from that particular person before you can even set up an instance. For example, you do not want to go to, let's say, Booker Huts, for example, and when you are selling them the system and you are giving them an instance with the URL called Mamakas, right? That's not what you want to do. So there are some things that you have to get from the client first, while you want to set up that instance for them. So we're going to look at those documents, what they are. We're going to look at data importation of those particular, or some of those items, or those checklists. We're going to look at the user permissions and roles, and also role profile. And we're going to talk about testing the software itself. Then for the hardware implementation, we're going to look at hardware and the requirements. And then we're also going to look at how to set up and configure the hardware itself, so the hardware will be able to communicate with the backend. So I'm just going to jump right into it and move from there. So the required documents before a system can be deployed for a business, you must understand what the business needs, right? This will help you to know how you set up the system with only the necessary things. So what I mean by necessary things is you don't want to be talking to a client and the client is saying, oh, I want all I need is just sales and accounting. I don't need to track my stock. I just want to use your system just to do my sales and to get my accounting, to get how much I've sold at the end of the day. And when you are setting up the system, you now go and put in things like sales, accounting, inventory, stock, payroll, HR, CRM. By the time the person opens up their system or the instance and logs in, person will see a lot of different things that are not necessary, and it looks bulky to the person, right? Person will not understand why are there so many things that are here that I don't want to use, but they are showing on my instance. So um, in order to reduce those models, you need to know what they need. So you have to only implement the necessary things for that instance. It's also important for you to know the operating procedures of the business. So when you're gathering the necessary information, you have to know how the business runs. So do they have an accountant? Is it one person that is doing the stock, the kitchen, and the buying? Is it one person that does the accounting, the inventory, the management? So the um you have to know how the operations of the business works. Now you don't want to go and be giving somebody that is running everything by himself. You don't want to go and be giving that kind of person something like a BOM, which is a bill of material, because you're just actually adding work to the person when you can also use something like a product bundle to work that particular issue, right? So you need to know the operations of the business so that you know which particular things you are going to be implementing on the software. Other prerequisites that you need to have is your company logo, the company logo, obviously, that's the client's logo, the email address and the physical address. This will help you when you are printing out on your final receipt, right? When you are setting up your previous profile, you can include this so that when it is printing out, it prints out that particular header. You also need employee setup, that's the employee names, the phone number, and the email address for biodata 6. You have your customer setup. So your customer setup should be on an Excel sheet. This will help you in importing. We're also going to look at how to import. We're also going to look at how to import. Same thing goes to your vendors, your vendor, your contact, your phone number, your email and address, all on Excel sheet. And obviously, you will need your menu, you need your store warehousing, and your bank details and your mode of payment. Now, all these things are necessary because without some of them, you will not be able to move forward. For example, you cannot sell if you don't have customers, right? You cannot buy if you don't have vendors. You cannot sell something that is not on a menu. And obviously, you cannot sell from thin air. You have to sell from a front house or from a store. And for your mode of payment, you are meant to have a bank account linked to your mode of payment. So these are necessary things that you must have in place first while you are still setting up the system. So these are information that you must get from the customer himself. I don't know if we're together. Are we together to this point? Please, I need feedback while I am going on.
Yes, we
Yes.
are.
Okay,
Yes, we
so
are.
I'm going to show you the one of the reasons why you need the logo for the logo of the business. So I'll just go right into an instance, a test instance, so you can see that. So I think I have one open. Okay, so I'm going to use this. So let me log out. So here you can notice that I have my image up here. I have this logo. This is the OyaSync logo. I have it up here, and I have OyaSync logo down here, right? So if I log in, I also have this home button here. Now, this home button can also be your logo. This home button can also be your logo. So I will show you how you can set up that logo and this home button logo here for an instance. All you just need to do is you go to your search bar. Now, I believe we've spoken much about the search option here on the instances. The search option basically takes you to anywhere on the system without you having to go to the module looking for it. So whatever thing you might be looking for, you can search it easily and you will get it. So now I am looking for how to change this to add my logos. So with that page that I just came out from is called the login page, right? And that is on a website. That is like your first point of reference when you want to log in. That is a website login page, right? So all I just need to do is go to my website settings. I go to my website settings, and here you will see that the home page is the login page. All I just need to do is scroll down and go to my login page. And here, okay, yeah, there's already there's so you can see the logo there already attached. If there's no logo attached here, all you just need to do is click on attach logo, select the logo from your system and attach it and click on save. That will change the login, that will change the login logo from whatever is there to this image here. So when the client wants to log in, the client is logging in, seeing his or her logo, knowing fully well that that is your instance. Now, how do we change this home icon here? This part, this border from end to end here, this end to end is what they call a nav bar. That's what we call a nav bar. So to change that, all you need to do again, use your search button and do what we call nav bar settings. You do go to your navbar settings and you can see the application logo here. So if I hover around this, you can see the home button. Now, say if I had another logo, a different thing I wanted to put here, all I just need to do is clear this and attach the new logo, and that will affect this my navbar setting. So currently I don't have any picture I can use. I would love to show you how to change this, but I don't have any pictures currently on my system. But let's see. Let's see if I can get this and see if I can attach the logo. Oops. And use this. This electron. Okay. So now you can see that logo is now here. Obviously, the logo is so small because the logo itself is small from what I downloaded. But that is what is now showing here. So if you actually have the company's logo itself or the client's logo, you can use that as your home button logo right here. So that's how you can change your navbar settings, your navbar logo, and your login logo. So that is why you also need the company icon, the company logo as part of the prerequisite of the things we have there. So company logo is very necessary. Your employee setup. So obviously, every company has an employee. That's why you need to set up the employee so you know who and who is actually in that company. Now you have to note something. Every instance can have multiple companies, right? Depending on how that client is being set up. For example, if I am going to be, let me use Meta. Let's say Meta, that's the owner of Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, right? If they are using this system, when you are setting them up on one instance, you are going to be having 3 or 4 companies, right? You're going to have 4 companies, one being the parent company, then the remaining 3, which is WhatsApp, Instagram, and Facebook, being subsidiaries of that parent company, right? So you don't want employee in Facebook to be showing as an employee in Instagram. So you have to set up the employee part so that each company knows who is attached to whoever person that they need. Then we have the supplier list, the menu list, and customer list. And we have the stores. So for stores, we have various stores. Once we set up the instance, there are 4 default stores that comes with the instance. We have the store, we have the finished goods, we also have goods in transit, and we have the work in progress. Now, as the name signifies, this goods in transit is mostly for when you're transferring goods from one place to another, and you are not doing a direct material transfer. You have to move it to one store first. Let's say I'm moving from Lagos to Kebbi, and I have to first move to a place like Sokoto. And when I get to Sokoto, I have to drop shipment first. Then another person will pick it up from there to Kebbi. So that store is called goods in transit. Then if I am doing my BOM, which I believe has been taught, you have things like work in progress. So work in progress is mainly for things that you have sent to the kitchen that will be used in preparing a particular kind of food or item. So that's what, so we have 4 default stores. Again, we have 4 default stores. We have 4 default warehouses, which is the store, the finished goods, the goods in transit, and our work in progress warehouse. Now, each of them obviously have a function. You just need to know how to attach each of them to whatever thing you need to do. I will not go into payment modes and bank details because I believe this has also been covered in your accounting and your sales when Lami was talking about mode of payments. So yes, that has also been covered under accounting when chart of accounts are being looked into. So now I'm just going to show you how to import a vendor or import a customer or a product, right? We have something called the data import tool, which helps you to record. Before I move on, any question in the previous slide about implementation and necessities? Do we have any question? Am I alone in class?
No, no questions from here.
Okay. is I like feedback when I am talking because it makes me feel like I am talking to myself. And obviously I can't see you, so I don't think I'm still talking to myself. So I will appreciate feedback, please. Okay, so we're
Okay.
going to do data importation. Data importation deals with mostly customers, and you have to do with customer, supplier, in your item. Now, you don't want to start creating items one by one. Before I go on, has data importation been touched in any of your classes?
No.
No. Okay. So you don't want to start creating items individually. Let's say you have a list of 100 items. What do you do? Do you need to start creating them individually? The answer is no. Same with your customers, same for your suppliers. Obviously, when you're setting up a client, you won't just say, oh, take the system, go and put in your record for yourself. Obviously, no. You will have to set up them, you have to set up a system for them that they can take and start using immediately, right? So you have to import data for them. I'm going to be showing you how to do your data importation for any particular thing you need. So now on the system, everything can be imported. When I mean everything down the to the most insignificant thing on the system can be imported. So you can import users, import items, can import employees, you can import whatever that is on the system has a way to be imported. Okay, can we import sales invoice, purchase invoices, but there are some ones that are more technical than the others. Something like a sales invoice, you will probably not be able to import it perfectly, which is why we discourage it. The reason being that sales invoice comes with different codes embedded into them and different titles and sales invoice number. And most of these things are auto-generated. And so therefore, when you are trying to import, you don't have these auto-generated IDs, and it's not going to allow you to import, or you're going to fail, or it's going to import and give you wrong data. So most of the times, we don't advise you to import everything and try to only import things that are related to your maybe your bank account statement, your customers, your suppliers, and your menu. Okay. Now there are two things to import. You can import new records or you can update existing records. Now, importing new records, let's say you want to import the list of customers from old system into the OIA thing. The first thing you need to do is to download the template which we can use to enter our data. And I'm going to jump right into that. So I show you how. Okay. So let's. So let's do data import. All I just need to do is search for data import list, right? Search for my data import and add new data. Now I want to create new data, right? So you can see here the document I start I say you can import everything. But now we are trying to import, let's say a menu. So we're trying to import items, right? We're trying to import items and we're inserting new record. Once we save this, you see a place we call download template, and we have to download that template. Now, in this part, it's going to obviously check so far you have the necessary tools, which needs which you have to definitely put in. You have your ID, so things like an ID you can uncheck. Although it is necessary, it is one of those things that is being auto-generated by the system. So you can check that when you're importing, the system is going to auto-generate it. Now, do not check because an item has a unique ID. So there's no way it's going to import and fail if you don't have the ID. You are meant to have the item code, you're meant to have the company you're importing to, the item group, and the depot unit of measurement. Now, because this is a blank, let's say this is a blank system, there's nothing for you to import. There's nothing for you to take to know how it looks like. You have to just download the template as it's white and empty, right? I download that and I open. Okay, so you can see here, I have my item code, company, item group, before unit of measure. Before you can even start saying, oh, let me import my item, you are meant to have your item group, which is one of the things you can also import, right? You by default, the system also comes with unit of measurement, right? I believe unit of measurement has been touched in previous classes, and item groups have been taught during your sales. So you have your unit of measurement and your item group. If you don't have anyone friendly on the system, I will advise you first to import your item group so you don't have mistakes when you're trying to import your item. Another thing to note is your item group name when you're importing. So let's say I have an item group called um, mineral with L, right? But on my system, I have it as mineral. When I'm trying to import an item code called orange juice, for example, so I can import orange juice on under the item group called mineral, you are going to have errors because the system does not know anything called mineral. The system knows something called mineral, but not mineral. So I will advise you, when you are trying to import anything, make sure the spelling is exactly the way it's on the system. Capital letters is capital letter, small letter is small letter. If it's a hyphen, put the hyphen. If it is not, do not put. Do not add, do not subtract. Because the system is rigid, it's going to only identify the markers that you have already applied on the system. So you can't start creating things that are not on the system itself or trying to update something that's not currently on the system. I don't think if that makes sense to anybody. Is it confusing to anybody? Does that
Yeah,
point
sure.
is that
It
point
make
clear
it
enough?
makes sense.
Okay. So I'm going to go back to my formatting and okay, so as I said, you can import your item groups. So let's say we have item groups on the system currently. We currently have some. So I just go to our item group tree and I can see we have something like main, right? Main. So I'm going to be importing an item into this main. And get me to back, use and I write my item with this name. My default unit of measure, I'm going to be using unit, for example. And so I have orange juices, I have some and book. These are just examples. I have so this be name. What else can I have? Inter. So this is in unit. Again, the same way your item has to be exactly the same way it's spelled. Same thing applies to your default unit of measure. Okay, so if you're not sure about how your unit of measure is spelled on the system, you can always go to your UOM list and check at how it has been spelled. So I'm using unit, so I'm just going to click on that. And I can see unit with capital U, and I have capital U in mind. And my company, obviously, I am currently using my company's name is currently Wendy's. And again, your spelling has to be exactly the same with what you have on the system, right? You don't want to. So if you just to clear benefit of that, you can copy it and paste it into your sheet, so you don't have mistakes. That was the best thing. That was the best thing. That's what I usually do. So that I will not say, oh, I typed it and it is wrong. Better just copy it and put into your sheet. So I'm going to save this and I'll go back to my importation. So I type my data import list. You can see what we created just 6 minutes ago. There's no importation file because no file was attached. I select that and I just attach my file. Attach here. Let's see this file. Okay. So attach my devices, download, item, open, upload. Now you see you have everything green, meaning you don't have any error. But I would like to show you what will happen if you have an error, right? I would like to show you if you have an error. So let me go back and I'll change this item group to main, right? I'll add an S to that and save it. I go and try and import again, same file, and I click on upload. So you can see here, it's telling me import file errors and warnings. The following values do not exist for item group main, just because I added an S, right? So if you click on start import, it's going to import just two items and it's going to forgo that particular one and it's going to tell you error. Sometimes if you have the items a lot, it's not even going to allow you to import any at all until you have rectified that error. So that's why you have to always make sure that all your columns are correct. Well, if I go back and I change this back to my name, I save this, play this, and I attach my file again. Okay, so I have no warning. All I just need to do is click on start import, and the system is going to tell you successfully imported to record. Now, if I go to my item list, you can see that I currently have trainer. But so this is the item code or the ID that is created for me. But when you go into the system, you can easily know the name of that item. I can send down this instance. Okay. But the name is going to show for you on other instances. Because this is my test environment, I use it for development. I actually switched that for last year. So yeah, your name is going to show here. The name of the item is going to show here. That is why you will have that's why you have now, yeah, because these are just the key items. It's just currently imported. So that's how you can import data into the system. So again, if you go to your data import list, as I said, you can import, yeah, okay, go back. Then you can see my status has changed to software with the file attached to it. Now, this file here, you can always go to your file list, right? If you ever need this, if you ever need to download it for any reason, you always go to your file list, click on it, and you download. Yeah. So that file is always there for you. But back to the matter at hand. So as I said, data import list, you can always import anything you want. So if you want to import your employees, for example, you can select employee. If you want to import new type, right? You can use a new type. If you want to import vendors, that's a supplier. Just need to select a supplier. If you need to import your customers, I just need to select it. Use customer. So you can import all the details. All you just need to do is just download the file, attach the correct information, things that are already on the system, make sure that they are same headers so you don't make mistakes. Again, things that are same headers that are already on the system, like item groups, if you have created them before, make sure it is styling with what you're currently doing on the system. Okay, so that is that. We're also going to talk about next thing I have is updating existing records. Now, let's say I have 1 million items and I want to update that record to something else, right? Obviously, you can't start going there one by one to update that record. All you just need to do is go to your data import list, right? Select what you want. So I say item, for example, I want to update my item, and I say update existing record, and I save it. Once I click on download template, set what I want to update, what fields I want to export and update, right? So I'm going to be saying, uh, let me just pick anything here, example. So item code, I want to change the company, yeah? And obviously exporting all the records, if it's all the records that you want to put. If you want to filter a record by a particular filter, you can add that. If not, you're going to export all the records. Now, if I export all of this, export for one record, I will have my CSV file there, my Excel template, and all I just need to do is open it. I just need to do is open it, and yeah, these are all my items, and my item code and the company. So if I want to change my company, for example, I have two companies on this system, Wendy's and New Business Enterprise. And I say, oh no, this product meant to be for Wendy's. All I just need to do is copy Wendy's here, put Wendy's here, right? And save this particular document. Go back to my data import, attach the file, and start import. That will automatically update whatever field that you wanted to update on your system. So that's how you can easily import data from customers or from your clients so that their data is in fact on the system. Are we together to this point? I'm open to questions if you have any questions.
I have a question, please.
Yes.
The updating existing records, like I saw something like exporting data. Like as when we export the data, are we going to export it in a new name, or for instance now that's a
No?
particular data on Excel sheet that you exported
Yeah.
to Excel sheet? Do you
Yeah.
export it when you is it are you exporting to a new name in this Excel sheet, or maybe there's an existing name that you exported it to? Because you're saying like something like everything needs to correspond, like whatever name that you are using for a
Okay,
particular
so
item.
when I exported it, the same way it's on the system, with all the necessary variables, that's how it's going to export, right? So it's not going to export, it's not going to export something that is like Coca-Cola that was under mineral. It's not going to export Coca-Cola under something else. It's going to export Coca-Cola under mineral.
Like
So the
I'm
reason why it's
talking
exporting
about
that
what
way,
folder
huh?
exactly are you
Sorry,
exporting? Like what folder
sorry, I didn't get
name?
you.
Like I'm talking about what folder are you exporting? Where exactly are you exporting it to? Like what folder name?
So once you download it, it's going to save on your system wherever, whatever. Normally, it goes to your downloads normally, right? That's the folder name on my system that I always get it from. So if I go to my download, this is it here, item name one. The reason why it's called item name one is because I have downloaded previously an item when I was importing, right? But item name one is so that I can differentiate which one is which thing. You can obviously always rename the file. Renaming the file doesn't really matter, right? You renaming this file doesn't matter. What matters is the content in the file itself. So now what I mean is you cannot rename headers like this. And so this is item code. I cannot change this to item codes, right? That is not going to work. I can change any other thing that is under here that's not a header, right? Which is already in existence. That is updating an item. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Yes, you have definitely.
Okay. So headers like this, which are static, when you were exporting the data, there were some check boxes that you had to check, right? Those are called headers. So those headers are not meant to be tampered with no matter what. Do not tamper with headers. You can always, if the file is called item one, for example, right? I can go to my folder, I can change it to whatever I want, whatever. That will not affect anything. As far as the system reads what is in the file itself and not the name of the file. Yeah. Okay. Any other question? Okay. I take that as a no. Right. So we are going to move forward with we have next. So yeah, so user permissions. I'm just going to touch on this briefly because I believe let me not even have you guys touched on user permissions and roles before? Or role profile or creating a user?
Yes, first they
Okay,
talked
so I'm just
about
going to
waiter role and account manager role.
uh,
Yes, she talked about
okay, that's good. So that makes my job easier for you to understand. Now, on the system, there are different things. So a user is attached to a role profile, which is attached to roles, which is attached to documents. Now, it sounds confusing, but let me say that again. A user is attached to role profile, which is attached to a role or roles, because we can have multiple roles, which is attached to documents. Now, let me go in depth in what I mean. I am just going to go back to our this. So let me just do this for example. So I go to my user list and okay, this is me. So I have this, right? So currently you have role profile here. Now I don't have any role profile, right? But I have roles. The reason for role profile is this. You don't want to start creating you don't want to start creating or selecting users, they start checking each role for each of them. Let's say you have 50 waiters or 50 waiting staff, right? And you're creating the users. You don't want to start clicking on, oh, this one is needed, this one is needed, this one is needed. Now, all these boxes here are called roles. These are roles, right? You can select multiple roles to create a role profile. Again, I take that. You can select multiple roles to create a role profile. What I mean is this. So currently I saw something here like Twitter. If I select Twitter here, you can see it has cancelled out every other thing I had before. And I have only sales manager, stock, waiter, sales manager, master manager, account manager, and account user. If I select administrator, you can see that I have everything checked. Now you don't want to start creating 50 waiting staff and start selecting their roles one by one. But as I said, waiter had this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, had 6 roles attached to them. So you don't want to start creating a user and every time you're attaching 6 roles to each of them. When you can just select their profile and you're going to attach the necessary roles for them. So you need to know you are going to learn with when during your period when you're deploying and all that, you're going to learn how each of these roles work and what they are meant to be doing. For example, you don't want a waiter to be having something like a well, purchase. So it's purchase master, manager, and purchase user. Now, obviously, a waiter should not have this kind of permission, right? An accountant should not have permission for something like um, um, although the accountant will not have the permission of the waiter. A waiter will not have the permission for a HR manager and things like that, so forth and so on. Yeah, you will obviously have to learn different roles and how to attach them to a role profile. Now, how do you create your role profile? All you just need to do is go to your role profile list. Now, all these roles have been created for you. It's already on the system. All you just need to go to your role profile. Let's say I want that for an accountant, and I save that. It's not going to actually spit out what I need for the accountant. So I need accountant to have the account manager, the account user, to have analytics. For example, I need them to have sales. I need them to have sales, obviously, as an accountant. If you have reports, if you have sales, if you have sales user, if you have sales master, there's something called prepared report user. That, well, so with time, you will get to learn what each role is meant to have applied on them. Yeah, you don't want to start giving an accountant the role for, let's say, item manager, right? You give them item manager, they can go and always edit an item price or something, which is not what you want. You just want them to handle the accounting part of it, right? So, as I said, you can attach multiple roles to a role profile, and you can attach a role profile to a user. Before that, you can have multiple documents in a role. What I mean is this. Okay, so these are roles, right? I can click on this. Okay, I can click on this. Here, I can click on it, and you can see the document type. So I can say this account manager will have permission to do an invoice, have permission to account, we have permission to mode of payment, we have permission to sales invoices, we have permission to this and that and that and that, so forth and so on. Yeah. And so it's possible for you to also create a new role, but that means you have to start adding permissions to it, which is a longer thing. That is something you will have to learn going forward when you have started deploying. It's not something you learn just like that. But yes, you can also create new rules. But currently, the system gives you everything you need already. All you need to, for you just for you to create the role profile and attach the necessary role for that person. Again, it must not be accountant, it can be supervisor, it can be anything that they need. So that's why I said you need to know the operations of the business so you know what permission you are giving that person. Any questions before I go to user permission?
So basically, this role profile now, if somebody that has a role logs into his own dashboard, he will only see certain things that relate to the role they gave him. Is that what?
Exactly.
Oh,
Exactly.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes, that's correct. So I created this account and for example, when I created this account and for example, right? When I log in, all these my modules here, I will not see all of them. Only things that I have been assigned to, things like my home modules, I will have my home and I will have account. Person will have assets, but the person will not have buying. Obviously, you will not have build too, because build is for all the engineers from our own end. You will not have buying, you will not have CRM, you have payroll as an accountant. You will not have stock and other things that are there. So yes, so when you're creating these things, it's only things that are necessary for you when you log in. That's what you are going to be seeing. Again, in order to minimize other things, right? We have things called module. Okay, let me go back to my user. So we get this point. Okay. So I was talking about role and role profile and how you can attach um, roles to role profile. So when I'm creating my user, all I just need to do is select my role profile and we apply all the roles necessary for that particular person. Now we are also going to talk about aligning modules. Modules, um, so yes, you might have permissions for everything, but it's not every module I want to see. For example, I don't want to be seeing my buying module by my left-hand side. I don't want to be seeing my account. Obviously, not everybody has permission to see everything, but still, yes, it's not everything that you want them to be seeing. So if I remove things like that and I save this, if I go back to my home, I remove my buying, I should again use the test environment. Okay, yes. So if you look now, I usually have buying here. But because I removed that from my module operation, it is not more there, right? So I can't, although I have permission for my buying, quite all right, I can go to my buying and I will see my buying. So I can see do my purchases, my purchase invoice, I can still do all that my search. It's just that it will not show on my module. So obviously that's not what obviously there's something the more you go, the more you learn more about modeling and things that are meant to be on the model. But I will advise you, even when you are giving them the necessary permission, log in first and make sure that they have only the necessary module. For example, even if I create the role profile for accountant and I log in and I'm seeing something like CRL, the best thing for you to do is just to go to that user's name, right, and deactivate the CRM module for that person. So even if the person does not have permission, it is possible. It is not always like that, but it is possible for the person to have to see that module. Just that when the person clicks on the module, it's going to show you do not have permission for this particular stuff. And in order to be avoiding errors like that, it's just good for you to just take out the particular module. So that's what we call allow module. So you have something like module profile here. It's also like a role profile. Yeah. Same way the role profile works is the same way the module profile works. So I can go and create a module profile by clicking here. You see um, create a new module profile, and I can attach what modules I want each person to see. So I can create a module profile called accounting. So when I'm attaching my role profile called accounting, I just need to go down to my module profile and attach the accounting profile. So I know that the accountant will see only the accounting section of the business. Are we clear to this point?
Yes.
I said a lot of things. Please, if I start confusing you, let me know. So I can slow down and go back. Okay, so yes, that talks about roles and role profile. Now, what are user permissions? You don't want, okay, an accountant has um, access to a particular document, but still you want to restrict them to only a particular document. What I mean is this: if you create a user, right? If I create a user, and okay, now I have two companies on this system. For example, if I create a user and I call that user a Bobby, for example, I call that user a Bobby. If I just create a user and don't assign a user permission to that person, right? Okay, just create the user. It's better that way. So if I create a user called a Bobby, right? And then Bobby is hard to remember. Emeka, let me use Emeka. So I create the normal user way. I put Emeka, this at Gmail, Emeka is new, and save this. We created the user accurately, right? And now if Emeka logs in, right? If Emeka logs in, Emeka is going to have access to the two companies that are on my system. So let me just give Emeka administrator there, I'll the role profile, and I save it. If I give Emeka, if Emeka should log in now, Emeka is going to see the two companies. Again, as I said, I have two companies on this system, which are Wendy and New Business Enterprise. So if Emeka should log in now, Emeka is going to see Wendy and New Business Enterprise. But Emeka is not meant to see the two companies. What should I do? That is where user permission comes up. Okay, that's where something like a user permission comes up. So all I just need to do is go to Emeka, my guy. I'll click on this plus button. Yeah. So the user's name, which is the email, is there already, and it's going to tell you allow. So allow for company. I want this person to be in New Business Enterprise, right? And I said this as default. So what I said this as default, that means when Emeka logs in, the only company is going to be seeing is New Business Enterprise. Applied to all document types means when he's checking documents like sales invoice, purchase invoice, or whatever document that's on the system, he's only going to see documents attached to New Business Enterprise. He's not going to see um, he's not going to see documents that are for Wendy. No, because this has been applied to all the documents. So if I save this, whenever I make a login now, it's only going to see company things that are necessary for each company. This same thing can be used when you are doing a PS profile. You can attach user permission for PS profile. Obviously, you can have multiple PS profiles, but you want to restrict them to a particular US PS profile. You can use your user permission to restrict a user to a PS profile. So all you just need to do is click on PS profile. COS profile, and you select the PS profile you want to attach that person on. You can also do this for customer groups, for example. Emeka is the head of new business enterprise, but only at Lekki. Sorry if I'm using Lagos because it's in Lagos and I'm there. So Emeka is a sales manager at Lekki, right? And I want him to only be seeing documents related to customers in Lekki. How do I do that? So when you're creating your customers, you can categorize them by territories, right? You can categorize them by territories, you can categorize them by customer groups. So if I say, oh, I want Emeka to only see only for Lekki, all I just need to do is select to allow for customers, right? Customer, it's just asking for the value, and you can say, oh, for value Lekki, okay, I don't have Lekki. So customer group, sorry, or customer territory, this territory, territory, territory. So territory, I have Nigeria, I have Ecuador. So if you have more territories, you can just select it. So I want them to only see for Nigeria or for Lekki, for example, and I click is default and apply to all documents and save this. So when Emeka logs in, only documents for customers that are in Nigeria or that are in Lekki, for example, he will be able to see. It's going to be, there are obviously other people on the system, but he's not going to see those ones because he is not permitted to see that particular document. Okay, so let me show you how Emeka will see. So if I go to, okay, let me go to my company list. Now for my company list, on this system, I have over 10 companies, but here you can see only two. This being that I restricted myself to see only two. That's why I have this restriction button here, right? That's why I have this restriction button, which is, like you said, I click on it, it's going to show me restriction for value, name, business, enterprise, for Wendy's, showing that I only have permission for Wendy's and business enterprise. But I can guarantee you that if I log in as the overall administrator of the system, I'm going to see various companies that I have under my instance for my URL. Okay. Are we together about user permission? Any question? Do you have any questions, please?
No question, no question.
Okay. So yeah, so that is mainly it. Then the next thing you have is testing. Obviously, testing, you have to test out the system when you have set out all these necessary things. You have to, as I said, always log in as the person that you are setting up to see if the system is okay for you. Once you do that, try creating things like sales invoices, purchases, try doing your stock, try importing, try doing every necessary thing to make sure that the system is up and ready and the system can be in use. So that's what the testing phase is all about. Then we'll go to the second part of the implementation, which is the hardware implementation. Okay, so hardware implementation. Um, Obviously, it's a software and you need hardware to be able to access a software, right? So the main hardware things you will need is an X printer. This up here is an X printer. Well, all of us have seen this kind of printer before. If you go to the supermarket, when they are printing out your receipt, that's what they give you. You go to Booker or to Chicken Republic or to KFC, when they are printing out your receipt, that printer that is printing out that receipt, that is it. They are called thermal printers. They are called thermal printers. But for Oya Sync itself, we always recommend X printer. X printer that is LAN cable enabled. Again, X printer that is LAN cable enabled. enabled. The reason I said LAN cable enabled is there's some printers like this that uses USB, right? Which is like a plug and play system, but that doesn't work for our software, right? There are some softwares out there that they have to create their own printers. Example, Square. Square, for example, has to come with its own desktop and everything. You can't just download it like that. It's not allowed. Yeah. So every software has their own hardware, but our own system uses a generic hardware that is out there that anybody can easily go and buy and use. So we are not conformed to using a specific hardware, but we always recommend an X printer. And an X printer has to be LAN cable enabled. So what is LAN cable? If you look at this picture down here, right, you will see this LAN cable port thing here. That is how the printer should have. It should have this port at the back of it. So it's going to have this port and it's going to, yes, so it's going to have this port. It's going to have like two of these ports. One is a telephone port, while the other one is a LAN cable port. But make sure it has this port. There are other ones that look exactly like this again, but they are USB enabled. So always insist on using a LAN enabled X printer. So that's one of the hardware. The second thing we have here is our modem. I say modem. Uh, our router. So you need a router definitely for your networking. Because the software is cloud-based, you obviously need data at every point in time. And you need your LAN cables, you need your Android device. You need an Android device running a minimum of Android 9, a RAM of 2 gig, and a minimum ROM of 32. And the phone obviously should be able to accept Wi-Fi network because it's on the phone itself, you'll be able to do that. For I for Apple devices, there's really no minimum requirements. But it's always advised for you to get from a 7 upward so that you can have adequate screen size. 7 is it 7 plus now or 7 Pro upward. So you have adequate screen size. You can also use a tablet, obviously, for this particular thing, and a desktop if the client requests for a desktop view of the system. And for the network, you have your router, as I said, and your LAN cable. So you need a LAN cable to for all this to communicate properly. Now, let me explain how all this hardware is being used to communicate with the system, right? When you are as a waiter, you want to punch or you want to select my items so that I can print out a kitchen docket, right? I believe a kitchen docket or a KOT was explained to you during the sales cycle. So I want to be able to print out a kitchen docket when I'm taking an order, right? So the phone is what is meant to click the order, while the printer is what is going to print out that order. The middleman between the printer and your phone is the router. The middleman between the printer and the phone is the router. Not just the phone, even the desktop itself. The middleman between all this is the router. The router is what is going to tell the printer, okay, the phone has sent so information, you print it out. Again, the middleman in all this is the router. So when you are deploying for a client, it's always advisable for you to tell the clients to get the router by themselves so that they get the best network in their environment. Don't go and start telling them to go and buy MTN 5G. And by the time you deploy it for them, you now see that they don't have MTN 5G in their area. No, it's always good for you to tell them to buy what router is good for them. Again, router that you are buying should have LAN ports enabled. It's meant to be a big router, not all these MTN handheld ones that you can walk around with it in your pocket. No, it's meant to be a LAN cable enabled router, like an MTN 5G or a Wi-Fi um, or an MTN or SpectraNet Wi-Fi. So not a MiFi. MiFi will not definitely work. It has to be a router that has the necessary ports, right? Then to my next part, I have, okay, so for the networking part of the configuration, which has to do with the printer, the LAN cable, the router, and the phone, you have to look at the IP address for both the printer and the router. As I said, the router is the middleman, right, which communicates between the phone and the printer. So most of the times, the IP address is mostly written as 192 dot something something dot something dot something. Now, it is not always this number. It is not always this number. This number differs from network to network, from printer to printer. It is not always this number. Now, how do you make this communicate? The router number, like the router IP address, which is always somehow on the which is always on the pack of the router. If it's a new one, you always get it. The router number is there. It has to match to the printer IP. Now, I cannot start showing you how to change the IP of a printer or how to change the IP of a router, because that has to do with physical meeting and all that. And I don't have a router and a printer with me currently. But at the end of this class, a document is going, at the end of this class or going forward, the document is going to be sent out to you on how to configure a printer or a router for you to be able to change the IP address of either of them so that they can communicate effectively with each other. Now, if my IP for my printer is 192.168.0.1.0, my MTN router or any router you have will be 192.168.0 dot any other number. Now, why I say any other number is it's just the first seven, is it six? The first eight numbers, just the first eight numbers have to correspond to each other. The last number doesn't really have to correspond. So my printer can be dot zero, while my router can be dot 100. That doesn't really matter. Yeah. So it's just this first three dots that we have here that have to correspond. So as I said, the way to change this number, a document to be sent out to you subsequently on how you can easily change a router IP address or a printer IP address. So, but you need that IP address to be exactly or almost exactly the same for communication to happen. Okay, so that is how the router and the printer part works. Then how does it work on the phone itself? So how does the phone communicate to the Wi-Fi? So obviously, yes, I am connected to the Wi-Fi, but does this mean that the Wi-Fi is going to automatically send the details of whatever I've punched to the printer? The answer is no. So when you download the software on your Android devices or on the desktop, you have the settings part on the app itself, right? But before you even before you even get to the settings part, you have to log in. Before you log in, you have to have, there's a place where they call server, right? So when you download the app, it's a place where you have the server part, where you have to connect the server. Now that is the URL when we have set up the instance for you. That's www.bookerhot.com or .app or whatever it is, or whatever name that we give you then. That is what the server is going to be. Then you log in. When you log in, you go to your settings on your mobile device or the Android or the desktop, and you will see a place where they wrote printer settings. Now, all you just need to do there is input the printer IP address into that particular place. So you are going to have a place called default printer. Click on it, select the default printer, and input the IP address of that printer. So if my IP address for my printer was 198.168.19.0, that is the same number you will put in your phone, right? You put that same printer in your phone, and it's going to ask you for a port number. Now, it is always same port number across board, and the port number is 9100. You don't have to memorize this number, 9100. When you are trying to set up a printer, you see the port number there. All you just need to do is for you to retype it. So you don't necessarily have to remember the port number. It is always there for you to always remember. Okay, so once you input this printer name or this printer IP and save it, and you now punch on your device, the device is now going to know that, okay, this is the printer I am meant to print out to. This means you can have multiple printers, right, and print from one device. You can have multiple printers and print from one device. If I say I want my category A to print out from printer A, and I click on my phone and print out, it's going to print out from printer A. If I say I want my drinks to print out from printer B, when I'm punching my drinks, it's going to print out from printout B, from printer B. Okay, so you can have multiple printers set up from your mobile device. So I'll advise you to go to Play Store, go to iStore, download the app, right? If you have a server, if you don't have a server, I think they should provide you with a server so you can go and see the settings and see how the settings part work and how you can always add a printer. Okay, so you can have multiple printers installed. So you can say, okay, this printer, I want this printer to go out. I want this order to be printed out in printer A, and I want this order to be printed out in printer B. So that when you're punching things for kitchen, you don't have to walk to the kitchen to go and give them the printouts. It will be printed out in the kitchen. And things for bar, for example, is going to be printed out at the bar. Okay, so that is how these three
Sorry.
devices. Yeah, go on.
Okay. Yeah, the phone, it has to be connected to the same Wi-Fi as the printer. Yeah.
Yes, it has to be connected to the same Wi-Fi as the printer. So you cannot connect to my hotspot and you are trying to print out. It's not going to work because the printer is not connected to my Wi-Fi. Okay. Okay. So
Yes.
let me do this. Let me look. Okay. Let me picture. You guys should picture this. I have a Wi-Fi. I have a router. I have a printer, and I have a mobile device. Right. As I said, the router is the middleman that communicates between the printer and the phone. That is step one. That is the first thing you should know. Now, what helps this to communicate is the IP address. As I said, you have to have same IP address on your printer and on your phone, which is the same IP address that is on your router, okay? Which is the same IP address that is on your router. So when I say same IP address, it's like creating a tunnel, saying, oh, you have the same thing I have, you have the same thing I have. That means I can pass messages, okay? So same IP address means we can communicate together. Now, if I disconnect, okay, how do you connect your printer to your router? That's another thing. You use a LAN cable to do this. That's why I said your router is meant to have a, as I say, your router is meant to have a LAN port for you to be able to plug in your LAN cable. Okay. If I go back to this image here, I don't know if I can zoom in. I don't know if I can zoom into this so that you can see this. So these are LAN ports. These are LAN ports. So if you plug in this LAN cable into this and you plug the other end of this LAN cable into your printer, it will be communicating because they have the same IP address. Okay. Yes. So that basically concludes implementation of hardware. I know it's looking a lot complicated, but I can assure you that once you do it, again, you might not be the one to do most of the things in hardware implementation. What I mean is this, you are probably not the one that is going to buy the Wi-Fi or the router and the printer. Most of the times, we tell clients to buy them by themselves so that they can get the best one in the market. So they don't start asking us for warranty. You don't want to be held liable for a warranty for something you just went to the market to buy. So it's always good for you to always tell them, oh, this is what I need you to do. Get a networking person. There are a lot of them. They call them networking gurus. Get a networking person, and this is what I need you to tell your networking person. Connect the printer to the Wi-Fi with a LAN cable, and they should have the same IP address. So the networking person that they can bring in from their end can do this. So you don't necessarily have to do this, but you have to get the information, the know-how about it, so that when you are implementing and you are testing, you can say, okay, everything is correct, and your testing is not going to fail. You don't want that when they now bring in a networking person, and the person has done his networking and flex, and you are not trying to print out later on when you come, and it's not printing out, and you're like, what's happening? What's happening? It's up for you to now go out and check whether the printer IP is same with the router IP and if they're connected properly and all that. So it's necessary for you to know the technical know-how about the hardware part of it. It must not be you doing it. The client can always get a networking person to do that. If you want to do it, it's fine by you, right? But it's not necessary, or it's not part of the thing that you are always going to do for every client. It's always good to just have the technical know-how, just in case things happen in future and you need to set it up by yourself. Okay. So yes, that concludes my class. I'm open to questions and questions about this class, about the previous classes too. I can answer that if I can. And yeah, that is it from my end. So I'm open to questions. Are we together?
Please, let's ask questions.
Yes,
Let's
we are
ask
together.
questions.
Okay. Is it
Because they're the one you're trying to configure that product to. So it's more or less like marketability, suiting that particular product to customer's requirement. So you need the company logo to just design an interface towards that company's brand.
that is correct? So it's basically like branding the instance for that particular customer.
Yes.
Yes, that is correct. Okay. My next question goes to is that Obon? Okay. My question goes to you. Name the 4 warehouses that are implemented on the system by default. What are the 4 warehouses you have on the system by default?
Yeah, you have good in infrared. You have good in transit. You have good in transit. You have store. You have work in progress, and you have finished goods. Sorry.
Correct. Work in progress and finished goods. That's correct. Okay, that's good. Let me check the time port. Okay, who can explain to me what a role profile is all about? I'm going to ask, okay, King, that who has answered? King has not answered. King, over to you. What's a role profile?
Good afternoon. I believe a role profile is you assigning responsibility to a particular person in a company, like a waiter. When you're trying to create a role profile for a waiter, you're trying to tell the person what he or she can do or what they cannot do, or responsibilities they can handle and the ones they cannot handle. That's my understanding.
That is correct. So a role profile basically defines what the person has access to in the system. And as I said, you can attach multiple roles to a role profile for each user. Okay? And who else? Okay, and Eric, you are going to be answering the last question. On the last question we have to do with hardware implementation. Okay, what name the hardware things you will need when implementing, and what is the main thing that they use to communicate across board? What hardware do you need, and what do they use for communication across board within themselves? Harry, this question for you.
Oh, okay. So we're going to need, first of all, we're going to need a router that has a LAN cable. We cannot use like a MiFi for it. So when we get the router, we'll get like a LAN cable to connect it. Then we'll get like the X printer, because the OyaSync ERP system does not work with just any printer. We're going to get a printer that has a LAN port so that we can connect the printer to the Wi-Fi. So after connecting it to the router, so basically, in order to print, you have to connect if you're using your phone, you connect your phone to the Wi-Fi, or if you're using your system, you can connect your system to the Wi-Fi, either using a LAN or just normal Wi-Fi connection. So yeah, then when you are setting up your printer and your Wi-Fi, you make sure that the IP address, they are the same. So you have to check the IP address on your router. Then you have to set it up. You have to set your printer up to have the same IP address as well. So I think that's all.
Yeah, that is correct. Okay, so again, I know it looks tough about setting up everything, but with time, once you start doing some implementation from your end, you will notice that obviously you will not do everything in one day, right? And but once you start doing implementation, you will have access to that. I'm also going to be sharing this document with the coordinator, and hopefully he's going to share it with everybody so that you can always have a copy of it. So thank you for having me, and good luck in your coming test.
Thank you very much.
Second number, please. Second.